The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
You are now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast, College Edition, featuring Mason Beckman and Tristan Warner. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Welcome in, wrestling fans. You are now dialed into the PA Power College Podcast. And as Jason Bryant of the Matt Talk Podcast Network said, I'm Tristan Warner, joined by my main man, as always, Mason Beckman, a.k.a. Beck Diggity. Mason, episode 27. The regular season, as we know it, has come to a close, turning our focus now toward the postseason.
What a year it's been, man. And obviously we still have the best part of the season to go with the postseason, but it's been a wild regular season. You know, we'll get into some of the storylines that have really dominated this year, stuff like the Penn State-Ohio State rivalry, Austin DeSanto, Spencer Lee, all those different things. But it's been a fun season, and I'm really excited to see how this postseason plays out.
Yep, that's right. We have a bunch of topics coming up. We have a couple, besides results to recap, we have quite a few good topics, a couple hypothetical situations to bring up. Let's start it off, as we always do, with our OWs of the weekend.
Right, so my OW of the weekend, again, we're going to kind of do at least I'm going to do a Pennsylvania guy and a non-Pennsylvania guy. My Pennsylvania guy, I'm going to go with Hayden Hidlay. Just another really good win for him against Micah Jordan. Scores a set of back points, gets a takedown to put the match away. Undefeated regular season for a redshirt freshman, ranked number 3 in the country, probably going to be seeded second if Nolf defaults out of Big Tens. So, you know, the win itself against Jordan is enough to give him the OW, but this is a little bit of a season thing for Hayden. You know, we've had him here on the podcast and everything, but I don't think we've really given him the credit that he deserves or the attention that he deserves this season. He's, I think, 22 or something and 0 with a schedule that obviously isn't super easy to navigate. He's got a win over returning national finalists. He's got wins over returning All-Americans and just really high-level guys. So Hayden Hidlay is my PA guy. The other one, to stay in that same dual meet, would be Joey McKenna. He goes out and just controls Kevin Jack for 7 minutes in his home gym on senior day, which that sucks. That's a terrible way to go out for Kevin Jack. He's had such a great career, but that Joey McKenna, the version of Joey that we've seen against Penn State and then even more so against North Carolina State, super good positionally. His attacks are really, really clean, and he's just an extremely smart wrestler. The version of Joey McKenna that we've seen these last few matches can win a national title, and it seems like he's getting better every time. So it's going to be interesting to see how 141 shakes out, especially with McKenna's re-emergence, so to speak, even though he's only got one loss, right? But so yeah, those are my two OWs of the weekend, Hayden and Joey McKenna. So who you got?
Yeah, I'll also say I definitely wouldn't count Kevin Jack out, even though he's not a Pennsylvania guy. I wouldn't necessarily say he went out that way. I mean, maybe his last home duel, yeah, but that's a guy that could very, very easily win a national title this year. Going to be, what, a 3 or 4-time All-American? 3-time. Most likely. So, but yeah, I will agree. McKenna is looking like the McKenna we saw at the Madison Square Garden 2 years ago, even though I will say I almost felt like he was kind of a favorite to win that weight class, and he ended up finishing 3rd. So maybe a disappointing finish to some, but at least we saw what he was capable of doing, and I think that version of McKenna is back after last year was a little bit of a slump year. Well, my two guys...
I wouldn't even say that last year was a little bit of a slump year. He had a great...
Maybe just a slump tournament.
Right. He had a great season, you know? And his 2 losses, when you really step back and look at his losses, they were to Tommy Thorne and Ironman at the NCAA tournament. Now, while I totally agree that as last season progressed, Joey just didn't look as sharp for whatever reason. You know, maybe being in the Stanford room and he didn't have the caliber of workout partners that maybe he needed, or, I mean, who knows? There's a million things that could have been going on behind closed doors. And look, maybe it was just something that was no longer the place that he needed to be. You know, obviously he has since transferred to Ohio State. So, I just, kind of like you said, I think that was just a down weekend for him.
Yeah, and going back to my OWs for this past weekend, I'll go with PA boy. I'll go with Zach Zavatsky with a win over Pete Renda. That's a good win for him. Those two have wrestled, I think, quite a few times now, just both being 84-pounders in the same conference, but that's a good win for him. Renda ranked third. So, yeah, good win for him over a fellow PA boy. And then Nick Zanetta also 2-0 on the weekend with a win over Karam, your Lehigh boy. So Zanetta looks like he's maybe peaking at the right time. Non-PA guy Mike Macchiavello looked sharp and beat Colin Moore. That's Colin Moore's second loss of the year, and it comes within a 2-week span. So a good win for Macchiavello, coming up a weight class from 184 last year, where he was a relevant guy, but not maybe a blue chip guy. But now that he's come up to 97, he's proving he's a top 5 guy who can knock off the number 1 guy in the country. So those are my OWs for the weekend.
Yeah, and the Macchiavello match was super interesting, man, because so Mock gets a stall point and a takedown to go up 5-3 with 20 seconds to go, I think, 19 seconds or something. He gets called for locked hands in that same sequence. So it's 5-4, they come back to the middle, and Moore gets out with like 12 seconds left, right? So he gets out, and you go, okay, we're going to overtime. And Mock just popped off another shot and got, cleanly up and through the number 1 guy in America to win the match in the last 10 seconds. And it was just, so he took him down twice in the last 25 seconds to get a lead, gave the lead away, and then scores another one to win. It was impressive, super impressive on Macchiavello's part, but it was also puzzling on Colin Moore's side. He hasn't looked like the same guy that he did last year. He hasn't looked like that same guy all season. And, I don't know, maybe he's outgrown 97. Maybe, again, you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. But that match is a fascinating thing to look at for reasons on both ends, right? Macchiavello clearly is more comfortable and more suited for 97. And Colin Moore just is a giant question mark right now. So,
yeah, and it almost leads back to what we've been talking about with Ohio State the last few weeks. Some of the guys just look out of shape, downright. And like you said, it could be like a sickness going around. We're not really sure, but they just seem to be gassing in the third period.
Right. It's a wild situation. So, challenge bricks. Mine, I'm going to throw this brick out there at anybody who forfeits bouts in dual meets in Division I wrestling. So, as I'm sure a lot of people have seen already, there was an article, a little blurb on Flow, giving credit to Hofstra because they didn't forfeit a single bout in a dual meet all season, which is awesome. What makes it all that much more impressive is that Hofstra has a 20-man roster cap. So, realistically, between guys getting hurt and invariably some guys are going to quit or whatever, right? I think their head coach, who, out of respect, I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name because I'll mispronounce it. But I know Dennis is his first name, and he said that they basically have about 16 guys to draw from at any given point due to injuries and other things. And they never forfeited a bout all season. It just really frustrates me to see Division I teams forfeiting bouts. And I get that there are certain situations that happen. You go on a road trip where I remember my sophomore year, we went to Oregon State, then Boise State, right? So if one of us gets hurt on that, say in the first duel against Oregon State, you can't get a kid out to Boise State in 2 days and get him down to weight, right? That I completely understand that stuff happens, right? And that's not what I'm throwing this challenge brick at. But how, when you have 2 weeks off, are you forfeiting 149? You know what I mean? I think forfeits, they suck for so many reasons. They're bad for the sport. They're bad for viewership. And, look, for the guy that gets the forfeit, that sucks too. Actually, my senior year, I was kind of in a funky situation. I'd never gotten a forfeit in college, and I got, I think, 3 straight dual meets. I got one. And it was just a really bizarre situation, and it sucks to, you make weight and everything, and you have to go take a forfeit. Like, it's not what I signed up to do. So, yeah, that's my challenge, Brick.
Yeah, I agree. The forfeit thing is, it's just like the ref thing we keep coming back to. Like I said, I've been coaching high school this year, and I've seen so many forfeits, more than I've ever seen in my whole life at any level. So it is really disappointing, not only just because it doesn't look good for the sport or the future of it, but it's also, like you said, it's disappointing for the guys. Like, you train all year round, especially some guys, like the summer, they're working out this much, and you only get so many opportunities to go out on the mat and showcase what you got and challenge yourself against somebody, and then you just walk out there to get your hand raised, cut all that weight, and that's all it is. So like you said, it is disappointing.
Right. And just one thing real quick.
Go ahead, finish it off.
High school forfeits, this was even more frustrating for me in high school, and I'm sure you got the same thing. When you're kind of a guy that, say, is highly ranked in the state or whatever else in high school, teams, I can't tell you how many times my junior and senior year especially, I know it's double digits between the two of them, teams would weigh guys in. And these are dual meets where the outcome was well known before the duel. We'd beat teams by 40, 50 points. And it's in the middle of the dual meet. They have kids warming up to go at my weight, and they wouldn't send just because. That stuff happens a lot in high school, and it is such trash. If you weigh a guy in, if you've got a guy available to send and you don't send him, that is garbage. I don't care what your excuse is, it's garbage. Unless the kid is borderline health-wise and you're only going to send them if you really, really need them, you know what I mean, to win the duel, okay, get it. Absolutely look out for the safety of the athlete. Beyond that, if you're not sending kids just because you don't want a kid to go out and get beat by a guy that you think is better than him or, whatever, I frankly, I think it's pure cowardice. I think it's such trash on so many levels, and this obviously hits a personal note for me because I would literally go weeks without being able to wrestle a bout because people wouldn't send against me in duels. And I mean, everybody, I'm sure the majority of people who are listening to this podcast have seen me wrestle. I wasn't dirty. I wasn't somebody that did, I wasn't a thrower or anything or somebody that tried to embarrass kids or hurt them. The people just wouldn't send because they didn't want their kid to get beat. And I think anytime that happens, I think it's uncalled for. So, sorry, I don't mean to hijack your thing.
No, the only other thing I was going to say as a challenge, Brick, was how many guys I saw get pinned in under a minute this week. I mean, everyone's talking about that Bo Nickel pin in, 11 seconds? And I just wanted to pose the question. I mean, I saw it happen a lot this week. Even a couple guys I think were ranked got pinned in 30 seconds. Mason, did you ever get pinned in college in under a minute?
No, I got pinned in college twice. One was against Logan Stieber, got bar halved. Not a fun experience. The other, I got pinned actually after the buzzer, but that's a side point. I got neutral pinned against Oklahoma my freshman year in 3 minutes exactly. So no, I did. No, Jordan Keller was his name. This was my true freshman year. Brewer redshirted that year, so we staggered our first 2 years and only had 3 years together. But yeah, I actually did pin a kid in 12 seconds at EIWAs in 1 year, which actually
cement.
Yeah, just snapped him and ran him over in a cement. It was weird because that was actually my first ever college pin as a starter.
Took you that long, huh?
Dude, you know me. I don't pin anybody.
All the way till March.
I don't pin anybody. It took me until March of my redshirt junior year to pin somebody as a starter.
Wow.
And a
lot of tilts. A lot of tilts instead.
The weird part was I pinned the next kid too. So I was like, wait a minute, why haven't I been doing this all the time?
Makes life a lot easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, that pin move's a good one.
All right, let's roll into the weekend results. Why don't you start us off with the recap from last week?
Right, so not a ton of results to dive into here, but Edinburgh wins over West Virginia. Sean Russell beats Zeke Moisey in overtime. Corbin Myers beats Matthew Schmidt 6-0 in a match that Corbin looked good, man. He looked real good. I'm interested to see what he can do in Cleveland. NC State wins over Virginia Tech. Awesome dual meet, awesome atmosphere. Came down to heavyweight. Michael Boykin, PA boy, gets the takedown in overtime over another Pennsylvania kid, actually, Andrew Dunn. Gets the takedown in overtime to win the duel for NC State, so that was awesome. It's their first regular season dual meet title since, like, 2004 or something. So it's been a minute. Good for Pat Popolizio in North Carolina State. Other results of note, Hayden Hidlay beats Solomon Chisco 8-4, and Zavatsky over Renda, which you already touched on. Zavatsky over Renda 3-2, and that makes Zavatsky 3-1 against Renda in their careers now. Renda's only win coming in either the round of 16 or the quarters of NCAAs in New York. I don't remember which one, but yeah, go ahead.
Definitely remember Renda beating him at NCAAs.
Yeah, that was the only. I know that's the only time he's beaten him. So interesting that Zavatsky, I don't want to say seems to have Renda's number, but there's definitely something there, right? Lehigh, the old alma mater, they knock off Oklahoma 31-4. Darian Cruz beats Christian, I think his first name is, Moody 7-5. Weird match. Darian goes out, gets a takedown, cradles him up, has him pretty close to being pinned. He's up 6-0. And then the rest of the match, it slowed down a lot. Moody's really good on top. And so Moody gets on top of him in the third, gets a 4-point near fall, and, he's kind of a suckback guy. Almost, not Lezak-ish, but kind of in that same vein. And Darian was super close to being out, and Moody did a great job of staying with it and kind of sucked him back, just sucked him right back and got 4 out of it. So that's how you end up at 7-5. Moody got that 4-pointer and I think an escape somewhere in there. So interesting match there. And then Jordan Cutler beats Mayhas. I don't know the correct pronunciation. I apologize. But that's another top 15 win for Cutler. 6-0 controlled match. Another great dual meet to watch was Army-Navy. It's always a great dual meet to watch. It's the best rivalry maybe in college sports, not just Army-Navy wrestling, period. We've had both an Army and a Navy coach on this program. They both spoke to it. It's a really, really cool rivalry. So, but wild dual meet. Army wins back-to-back 2-1 matches to win the dual meet at 97 and heavy. So, pretty cool stuff for Army. I'm sure that's a big win for Coach Kevin Ward and staff. Pitt wins over UVA 28-9 on senior night. Man, I tell you what, Pitt has continued to get better this year. And, they're not a national title team or anything like that. But you've already seen the effect of the new coaching staff, the new, training regiment, whatever it may be. Those kids are changing. They're competing harder, and they're just getting better. And it was pretty cool to see. I was there. It was Pitt's senior night, so it was a great way for their seniors to go out. Sucks that UVA, they didn't have Jack Mueller or Sammy Krivas. Not really sure why, but those are both bummers. And
would have been a homecoming for Krivas too.
Right. The most important thing of note in this dual meet, Pitt wore their throwback singlets for the first time ever, with the royal blue, the lighter blue and the yellow and the script Pitt, and had the cathedral on the back. Awesome singlets. They might be the best singlets in the NCAA. They're simple, they're slick, and the cathedral on the back is a really nice touch. So I'm all for Pitt's throwback singlets. And like I said, Pitt wins 28-9 on senior night. So why don't you take it from here?
Okay, so we got Michigan State over Clarion 22-15. The only real match of note that at least has Pennsylvania ties. Brock Zackrell continues to impress, beats Javier Gasca 6-3, and that Zackrell, he's in the top 5 now, isn't he? I want to say he's ranked 5th or 6th.
I think he's 6th now because McKenna's win over KJ leapfrogged him.
Yeah, still a great season for Zackrell so far. I think he's actually ranked higher than Dean Heil right now.
Right, so, he is. He's still Brock's
that puts
undefeated.
Anything in perspective. Yeah, that's what I thought. Add him to the list of Hayden Hidley, a couple other PA boys.
Mm-hmm.
Still unblemished records on the year. Clarion also picked up a win over Eastern Michigan, 18-12 on the weekend. Mason, you might want to talk about this one more if you know more than I do, but I know Mizzou beat Northern Iowa. The score looked bad, at least the team score, but I know there were some pretty good individual matchups. 23-9, I guess, was the final. Not really any Pennsylvania ties here, but some good matches. Jaden Ironman looking pretty good, beating up on Josh Albert at 141. And then Grant Leaf, who's a guy who started his career at Duke, didn't really wrestle much, didn't really get a lot of time for whatever reason, might have been hurt, ended up transferring back home to Missouri.
It was the neck thing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Got hurt at maybe a senior year of high school or redshirt year and was out for a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. So he comes back to Missouri. He's having a great year. He's ranked 3rd in the country, and he beats Thompson from Northern Iowa, who's a returning 5th-place finisher. So that's a good win for him. He's, like I said, ranked 3rd. He beat Justin Oliver from Central Michigan a couple weeks ago. That really launched him up in the rankings, and he's solidifying that spot. And then Daniel Lewis, who came up from 65 last year at 74 this year, beats Taylor Lujan in a wild one. I think it was 13-9 or 13-10, something like that.
Yeah, in a match that Lewis was blowing him out and Lujan almost dug out of the hole. But that dual meet in general, first of all, anytime you get a chance to watch a duel that's held at Northern Iowa, do it, because they've got an awesome environment. And it's a pretty unique thing, too, because Northern Iowa, every dual meet they have ever wrestled at home has been in I think it's called West Gym. But, like, they wrestle in the exact same spot that the first dual meet was ever held at in Northern Iowa, so that's pretty cool. But the whole dual meet, Ironman, Albert, Leith, Thompson, Lewis, Lujan, whole dual meet, awesome. I'm pretty sure it's on Flow. If it is, go check it out. Just great wrestling, great stuff across the board.
Yeah, I'll speak to the West Gym real quick. I did get one opportunity to wrestle there my 5th-year senior year. Wild match. Not my most fond memory. In fact, actually probably my least favorite memory of my entire wrestling career. I won't go into full details, but pretty heart-wrenching night for the Warner clan. Ended up losing the duel on a last-second pin that my brother fell victim to, and that place just absolutely went bonkers. And, I mean, in any other match where I didn't have a personal stake in it, I would say that was a cool environment to wrestle in, but that place will forever just leave an awful taste in my mouth, so hope to never go there again. I'll just leave it at that.
Right. That's Norman, Oklahoma for me. I will be happy if I never have to go to Norman again. I've wrestled there twice. I told you about the defensive pin the first time. The second time I got majored by Brewer. I've wrestled 2 bouts there and given up a total of 10 team points. Screw that place.
Yep. So let's keep going. Princeton over Penn, 28-15. Edinburgh gets a win over Cleveland State, and I think that led them to share for the EWL team title, if I read the headline correctly, which is impressive for Edinburgh, because even on a down year, they're a little bit down this year, but still sharing the dual meet title for their conference. American beats Ohio 20-12. 2 PA boys picking up a win out of Gage Curry and Jarrett Kasnick. And of note, Cam Kelly for Ohio knocks off Terrell at 133. Bloom comes back and beats Bucknell 22-20. So that's a battle between 2, I guess you'd say District 4 area colleges. Both kind of down also, but young, you'd also say. So some promise there. Bloom with a 22-20 win. Drexel with a 30-9 win over Penn. And I'll tell you what, Drexel has been one of the most impressive teams of the year, I'd say. Back in the summer, Mason, when we were doing our team previews, looking at all the teams for this year, I don't know that we necessarily thought that this would happen, but Drexel is definitely turning heads across the country, and they're definitely impressing me more and more each week, I would say.
They continue to get better at a pretty rapid rate. The things that Matt Azevedo and his staff are doing out there, they're doing really good things, and we can talk up and down about Austin DeSanto, and rightfully so, what he does individually on the mat, but I think a guy like that... So we've had a lot of head coaches as guests on our show so far, right? And you kind of hear them talk about changing their programs, and one of the common threads is you need that first big recruit, you need that catalyst. And I think Austin DeSanto has been that catalyst for Drexel to to take their program to the next level. I think when his career is done and we look back on where the Drexel program will be at that point in time, I think we're going to talk about him as having been the catalyst to take their program to greater heights.
Yeah, I mean, his career is definitely young still. He's only in, his fourth month of college wrestling, but so far, at this rate, you could definitely say that. I mean, the guy's ranked fourth in the nation at a weight that I didn't think he'd be at. I thought he'd be a 25-pounder, honestly. He's up at 33. He's ranked fourth in the nation. He's teching and pinning people in under a minute. He's doing some polarizing things, I would say. So, yeah. And he's captivated the whole country, basically, ever since his win over Spencer Lee at PIAA States last year. So, yeah, he's someone that's, what was the term we used? Must-see wrestling. So that's big for a program like that. You want to take us through, Penn State beats Buffalo 55-0. Not a whole lot to say about that. Chenzo almost pinned himself again, but he found the W. Bo Nickel pinned a guy in 11 seconds. And we'll get into the Shakur Rasheed thing coming up next, but you want to recap Ohio State, NC State for us.
Yeah, Ohio State, NC State, you could not have asked for a better way to end the regular season than a dual meet like this. Lopsided dual score, but not indicative of the wrestling that took place. Duel starts out, Miles Martin gets a win over Pete Renda, so rough weekend for Pete, man. Comes in undefeated, goes 0-2. But, either way, Pete actually looked really good against Miles. And the thing that was interesting about that match, Renda got in super deep on his shot, that high crotch, late in the match. And Miles, I don't want to say effortlessly, but looked super calm, never looked worried. Just sits himself to the corner, actually locked up a cradle and got 6 out of it. But, it was a 3-2 match before then, and Miles ends up winning 9-2 or whatever it was. So, interesting match between Mymar and Pete. But then 97, we've already talked about Machiavello and Colin Moore. Huge win for Mock there. Heavyweight, Snyder scores a few touchdowns. 25, another really interesting match here with Tomasello and Foz. As good as Sean Foz is, and as much respect as I have for him, I don't think anybody really expected Foz to win that bout. I know what I was looking for. Foz cuts an absurd amount of weight to make 25. Absolutely outrageous weight. And
yeah, he's a pretty tall 25-pounder. I almost thought he looked like a big 33-pounder when I saw him in person a year or two ago.
He's like the size of AJ Shop. Literally has the same frame. So, anyway, I was interested to see how Foz would hold up for 7 minutes with a high pace on a 1-hour weigh-in. And he fought, he looked good the whole way through. NATO kind of ended up beating him up a little bit. 12-6, I think, was the final. But Foz impressed me. I think that he is more than capable of beating anybody in that weight, for sure, other than those top 4. And it would not shock me to see him beat one of those top 4 guys in Cruz, Suriano, Lee, and NATO, in no particular order. So, interesting result there. Luke Pletcher gets back on the horse, gets a real solid win over Tariq Wilson. We talked about McKenna and Jack, and then Hayden Hiley and Micah Jordan we already talked about. So, another great duel. It was on ESPN, the ESPN3, the streaming thingamajig. So, if you've got to log in to be able to go watch that stuff, it's worth your time. Go back and rewatch it. Again, the dual meet score ends up lopsided, but awesome environment. Awesome wrestling by both sides. Just really, really good stuff for the sport. Especially anytime 2 programs like that are willing to make that dual meet happen out of conference strictly because they want good wrestling. It's pretty cool stuff. And then the other results, just to run through, Lehigh over Pitt 25-10. This was actually a duel that Pitt led 10-6 at halftime. So Darien beats LJ Bentley 1-0 in what was frankly a painfully boring match to watch. And trust me, I know something about boring matches. I wrestled a lot of them. But just Bentley did a great job of keeping Darien from getting his offense going. But there just wasn't really anything that happened. The only point was Darien's escape. So, 33, Dom Fories beats Scotty Parker 7-6. Wild match. Everything that 125 was not in terms of excitement, 133 was. So, 41, Nick Zanetta gets a takedown and a tilt in the last 30, 40 seconds to win 6-1 over Luke Karam. Then you get to halftime. So then Court Schuyler wins a close one at 49. Taylor Bermani majors Ian Brown at 57. So it's 10-6 Pitt going to halftime. And then from there out, Lehigh kind of got on the horse. Gordon Wolf gets a tech. Cutler gets a major. Price gets a major. Weiler gets a win. And Jordan Wood gets a win over Ryan Solomon. So that's how
it's a good win for Jordan Wood.
It is another good win for Jordan Wood. He has quietly put together a very good season. So, especially for a freshman heavyweight, when you really think about that. So, yeah, interesting result there as far as the 25-10 and kind of how they got there. Some interesting bouts. But then West Virginia over Clarion. Zeke Moisey gets a pin. Brock Zacher gets another win. And then, just to throw this one out there, Iowa just runs a train over Iowa State. Spencer goes out and pins somebody in less than a minute. Mikey Kemmer wins 11-5, which I think I've said it before now. Mikey just doesn't look right. Maybe, I don't know.
He's coming back from that knee injury. I think he still has a brace on it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
and he didn't look like himself in the Penn State duel. So I don't think we're seeing 100% of Mikey Kemmer right now, health-wise, but he's still getting W's.
I agree. And look, Mikey looking off is better than 99%, probably more than 99% of people looking all the way on. So, I mean, he can be just fine. But just not quite the Mikey Kemmer that we've seen prior to the knee tweak. So hopefully this 2-week gap here will give him time to get on the mend. So you mentioned Penn State and Buffalo and Shakur Rasheed being the guy. I gotta be honest, and you and I have talked about this a little bit already, Tristan, but I didn't think this was much of a decision. I really didn't think this was a difficult decision. And the reason I say that, so go back to the beginning of the year, where, the question at the beginning of the year was Cassar or McCutcheon. So that's kind of an interesting storyline that has developed. But they go to the Keystone Open, Keystone Classic, that Cassar wins, and truth be told, I don't know what Rasheed placed. So Cassar wins that, right? But that's all the way back, I think in November, maybe early December. The objective of all of this is to put the best guy on the mat in March. So, while December results factor into that, you got to put the guy that gives you the best chance to score big points on the mat in March, right? So anyway, we fast forward to January 1st and 2nd, and Rasheed goes out and basically burns the forest down at the scuffle, just smashes everybody. Pins his last 3 guys in a grand total of like 2.5 minutes or some outrageous thing. Cassar, I want to say, lost in the other semi. I'm not sure where he ended up placing. But so that's a national tournament caliber bracket where Rasheed dominates. Cassar gets beat before he can get to Rasheed. Okay, so there's thing number 1. That's, in my mind, that's really where the wheels start to turn. They then come back from scuffle, and in every dual meet, they alternate. No guy wrestled more than, I think, two duels in a row. So they go back and forth and back and forth. Meanwhile, somewhere in all of this, Rasheed wins a Wrestle-Off 7-4 over Cassar. They keep going back and forth. And it was kind of interesting because everybody was on the Shakur Rasheed train, right? Everybody was all the way in on Rasheed. At least that was how it felt to me. And then Cassar beats Colin Moore. And there's this frenzy. Nobody knows what to think. Nobody knows what Kale's going to do. Nobody knows who they want to go. Or, there's this huge Cassar camp and there's this huge Rasheed camp. In my mind, the Colin Moore win didn't change anything. Rasheed was the guy before then, because of the scuffle, because of the Wrestle-Off, and because of his continued dominance over very, very good guys. The Colin Moore win was huge in more ways than one. It won them that dual meet. It was an upset of a guy who hadn't lost since last March, the number one guy in America. And, you can talk up and down about what that one bout meant in the moment, but it doesn't change the situation between Cassar and Rasheed. So, again, I guess just for me, this wasn't and we've talked about it, and there's always the element that you just don't know what's going to happen, right? So, maybe they did send Cassar for whatever reason. But this, to me, didn't seem like a decision. This, to me, seemed pretty cut and dry. And, I had some people tweeting at me saying that the Wrestle-Off is the end of it. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. When you wrestle off, that is only a piece of the puzzle. Now, the Wrestle-Off, in my mind, was kind of the nail in the coffin because Rasheed won the scuffle. He dominated the scuffle. They come back from the scuffle, and he continues to dominate elite-level guys. And then he wins the Wrestle-Off, right? So that's kind of 3 strikes, you're out situation, where you got scuffle, Rasheed shows it's not a fluke, and then he wins the Wrestle-Off. Like, ding, 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 you've checked all the boxes, it's your spot. Without question. You know what I mean? So, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish up your thought.
So, I was just going to say that Wrestle-Offs, while important and while part of the puzzle, they are definitely not the be-all, end-all. I mean, look, we've talked about it on this podcast before. I lost my Wrestle-Off my senior year, but there was never a question as to who the guy was going to be.
At least that's what you think.
We can shut up. We can rattle off a laundry list of situations where this is the case. That a guy loses a Wrestle-Off, maybe because he had a bad day in the room, maybe because, who knows? When you wrestle a guy every day, it's hard to beat the same guy. Everybody in Division I room is really, really good. It's hard to beat the same guy every single day, especially when if it's been your spot for a long time and the other guy is fighting tooth and nail just to start. I know this sounds kind of ridiculous and a little bit asinine, but winning that match is going to matter more to that guy. You know what I mean? So, because all that guy wants is to start. All he wants is his shot, and he's getting a chance to do it. So, I know Jason Bryant brought up an example, including one of the Frischkorn brothers at Oklahoma State, where he lost his Wrestle-Off and then ends up like the number 3 or 4 guy in America at NCAAs. I know Randy Cruz lost his Wrestle-Off his senior year, and then a month later was ranked 2nd in the country. So, I guess my whole point here is our Wrestle-Offs matter, but they're not the be-all, end-all. And I think one of the things that, unless you've been in Division I room, that you don't necessarily realize, but every night's a Wrestle-Off. If you think that the staff isn't sitting there watching the dynamic of the room every night and the hierarchy of guys in the room every night, it's a huge part of it. You know what I mean? They're always watching. And our coaching staff at Lehigh openly admitted it. Like, we are always paying attention. You need to come to compete every night. So, yeah, that's kind of my take on not just the Rasheed situation, but how Wrestle-Offs play into things.
Yeah, I think you couldn't really go wrong with either guy for Penn State. It's kind of a shame they both can't wrestle. You can't have 2 entries, but that's not the way it works. So, I just see, both guys are great. Both guys have big potential at the NCAA tournament. I just see Rasheed as more of a point scorer, more dangerous, more, I guess, elusive, whatever you want to say, on his feet. They're both great, like I said, but Rasheed just maybe has a slighter upside, maybe at least capable of, even if it's just catching him in a cradle and pinning somebody that maybe Cassar isn't going to beat. But, then again, I could see either guy being a national champ this year. So, we'll see. And like I said, always trust Kale. No matter what he picks, I always say it's the right decision because that dude's hardly ever wrong.
Yeah, and he's flat out better at being a Division I college head coach than any of us that are sitting here having this conversation. So, as ever, I will defer to Kale. Or, frankly, pretty much any Division I head coach on most decisions. I think, it's hard to criticize when you don't really know the job. For the most part, there are definitely decisions that are complete head scratchers or just downright wrong, but not to sidebar into other things. So, weekend preview. We don't have one, obviously, because nothing's going on this weekend as far as college wrestling goes. There are the high school postseason stuff's going on, so good luck to all those PA guys competing out in the postseason right now, especially my Reynolds and my Quest guys, obviously. Tristan, to your CV guys as well, the best of luck to you, sir. So, conference qualifier allocations come out this week at some point. I don't know what day. Is that this weekend?
I want to say they usually come out on a weekday, like a Tuesday or a Monday, but I could be wrong. It seems like it changes every year, too.
Maybe it's tonight. Maybe it's Wednesday. I don't know.
Could be, yeah.
I feel like that's something we should probably know. But I never paid attention to it as an athlete, as silly as that sounds, so I don't really know. Yeah, so that's our weekend preview. It doesn't really exist. Just something.
Let's roll through some of the biggest storylines of the year real quick before we get into a couple other topics here.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. So, like I said at the jump, it's been an awesome year for so many different reasons. There's been some incredible wrestling, not just Pennsylvania related, but nationwide. There have been some really interesting storylines. To go from the top, you got the Lees both coming out of redshirt. Spencer at Iowa, Nick at Penn State. Both have had immediate impacts. Both have established themselves as single-digit ranked guys. Spencer, absolutely a title contender. Nick, I would say, is more of an outside shot title contender and for sure a solid All-America candidate. Jason Nolf's injury is something that continues to develop. Nobody knows what the situation is there. There's speculation all over the place from he's walking perfectly fine to he looks like he got shot in the leg. So nobody really knows what's going on with Nolf's injury outside of the Penn State camp, and they're not talking. So that's going to be one we're going to have to keep tabs on moving forward, obviously. Austin DeSanto, what do you say? What a season for the true freshman so far. A guy that, I'll be totally honest, I thought he was going to be really good before it was all said and done. I did not expect this, and I don't think anybody did. He has just...
I bet you Austin DeSanto did.
Right, okay, that's absolutely fair, and I'll bet you the entire Drexel camp did too. They obviously believed in their guy, they knew what they had, and kudos to them because, it's not... Obviously, Austin's the one that's putting the work in and doing those things, but Matt Azevedo and staff, everybody surrounding that program, and we talked earlier in this podcast about all the good things they're doing out there in Philly. DeSanto's season has really been a fun thing to watch unfold. I don't think I've ever been as wrong as I was about how I thought his match with Mičić would go. And if anybody out there tries to tell me that they thought that DeSanto would drop 20 plus on Mičić and almost tech him, I'm sorry. I'm going to call BS on it. I don't think there's no way. I'll bet you I'm sure DeSanto believed he could do it. I severely doubt even his coaching staff at that point in time thought he could do it. So that, his season's been awesome. We talked about Penn State's wild ride at 197. You've got a returning round of 12er and Matt McCutcheon coming into the year. He loses the Wrestle-Off to Anthony Cassar. Cassar's the guy for a while. And then out from the rafters, Shakur Rasheed, who was a 57 not that long ago, comes out of nowhere, wins the scuffle, and wins the spot. So Penn State, their situation in 97, the way it has evolved, has been really wild. And Matt McCutcheon, by the way, I do want to throw this out there, a guy that had career-ending shoulder surgery a couple of weeks ago, and just wanted to, give him a shout-out. Awesome kid. Hell of a career, man. I know it, sucks that it has to end that way, and that you don't get one more chance to make a run at it, but incredible career. I think I speak for all of us when we say, Pennsylvania is proud to have been represented by a kid like Matt. Not just on the mat in general. I think he's a great kid, so sucks that had to happen. The Penn State-Ohio State rivalry and the build up all year to that duel was so incredible. And then the dual meet it delivered in spades. It was the best dual meet I've ever seen. I think that a lot of us have ever seen. To anybody that was there and able to experience it, that had to have been a once-in-a-lifetime thing. So that was incredible. Kudos to all involved there. Adam Kuhn over Kyle Snyder. I don't even need to explain that one. That was just... Kuhn did what almost everybody thought was impossible. So, going to be interesting to see how that plays out moving forward. Probably going to see that match 2 more times.
Yeah, that was definitely shocking, like you said. I mean, this guy is what you've even referenced several times this year as the best wrestler in the world, and he goes down in the in an NCAA college match to a guy his own age or whatever within the United States, much less the world. That was kind of the same feeling I had when he got thrown and pinned in the national finals by Kyvan Gadsden, and then a couple months later goes and wins. Was that Worlds or the Olympics that year? I forget.
Worlds.
Might have been the Might have been. Okay, yeah. So similar thing. It's crazy. Richie Lewis, similar situation, goes out and wins the U23 Worlds, and then comes back and he's ranked like 11th in the country in his own NCAA. So it's crazy. I guess when you put things in perspective like that, even if it is freestyle folk style, it is crazy to think how competitive USA wrestling is.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it after the Snyder-Kuhn match. USA Wrestling, at least in my conscious lifetime, is more talent-rich right now than any time I can remember. It's a really cool thing to see. A really, what a time to be alive, right? So it's been pretty awesome. So those were just some of the storylines. We could be here all night talking about all the different storylines that took place during the 2017-2018 season. But, the next thing I think I want to talk about, rolling into the postseason, what's the weight you're most excited about? Give me one weight that you're the most excited about.
Oh man, one weight. I'll let you take at least one or two of these that I know you're really excited about. I'll choose a different one, and I'll go with 174. I'll say Mark Hall, the returning champ, but you also got Zahid in there. You got Jordan Cutler in there. You got Bo Jordan in there, his 5th-year senior year. Is he finally going to get a title? You got Amin, who just beat him. Among other weights that have, not really a clear-cut favorite. Zahid looks like the guy so far, but there's just so many great guys at that weight, so many good matchups, and it's not always maybe a weight you would pick, as there's obviously some other really obvious choices. So I'll go with 74 just to be different. Let's hear yours.
It's hard for me to pick between these two. So my two are 25 and 41. 25 because those top 4, it's going to be so much fun to see them hit in the same bracket, especially because you've got, we all year long there was a question mark about Spencer Lee, and he gets thrown in and he loses in the Midland semis, and I know that I personally, looked at it and went, okay, maybe, he'll be right there in the All-American conversation for sure, but maybe he's not a national title guy yet. And then, bam, he beats Nathan Tomasello, and all of a sudden, it's like, he's arrived. He's a top 4 guy, without question. And then the wild card in all of it, you've got those 3 guys in the Big Ten with Spencer, Suriano, and Nato. The wild card in all of it is Darian Cruz, the undefeated defending national champ, who won't see any of them until the semifinals of the national tournament. So 25 is going to be awesome. I really freaking hope that all 4 guys make the semis, and I would be surprised if they didn't. But everybody at NCAA is really, really good, and you're going to have a guy like a Zeke Moisey, you're going to have a guy like an Ethan Lezak lurking around in the quarters in the round of 16, and the thing about NCAAs is absolutely anything can happen, as we've seen time and time again. So 25 is going to be a ton of fun. And if I have to pick one weight, I'm going 25. I'm partial to it, and I have no issue admitting that. Really excited to see how that bracket plays out. Really excited to watch Darian's last tournament as a Lehigh Mountain Hawk. The other weight that you have to mention 41 is just all over the place with Meredith, Yanni D, Kevin Jack, Jaden Ironman, Dean Heil, Joey McKenna, Nick Lee, all these different guys. 41 is going to be a blast, especially because with the exception, and Joey McKenna's a lot of fun to watch wrestle. I don't want that to sound wrong, but all of the other guys are wild scramblers. They get into some crazy situations, which makes for even, more entertaining wrestling, right? So 25 is my number one answer, and then 41 I just had to throw in there.
I like it. Let's get on to one last topic here before we get to our interview. Mason, here's a hypothetical situation I wanted to throw out. Shout out to my co-assistant coach at Cumberland Valley, Mark Murphy, 3-time D2 All-American at SHIP. Definitely a guy who has a good grasp on all things wrestling and always has good opinions of how things could change or how things could be different. He brought up this hypothetical scenario to me, and I wanted to toss it out here on the podcast and see what you think of this. We were talking about the systems of how NCAA qualification has been in the past, where you just had every tournament got the exact same number of qualifiers. So, for example, remember when I was a kid, the Big Ten got 7 qualifiers at every weight. Didn't matter who was ranked where. That's how it was. Now you got the system with, you use the 2 of 3 criteria, whether it's the RPI or the coaches panel and the winning percentage, all that type of stuff. You get your 29 guys qualify, and then there's your 4 wild cards at every weight, okay? And then that's determined at the conference tournament. The topic he brought up to me that he thought was cool, he wrestled in Division II, so he's used to, I don't know if you're too familiar with the super regionals that they have, where there's 4 regional tournaments. There's no conference tournament at the end of the year. So there's like an East, or like a Northeast, a Central, a South, and a West, something like that. And, the same teams are in those regions every year. Most of them, I think, are broken up geographically, and you just have, I think it's the top 4 from each region qualify to make a 16-man bracket at NCAAs. So, in this hypothetical scenario, what do you think about having 4 regionals in NCAA D1? So you have the North, the South, the East, and the West, something like that, where it's broken up geographically, also maybe taking into consideration, teams where they're ranked and stuff, but regardless of how you separate them, 8 qualifiers from each regional, not conference, make a 32-man bracket. So you get rid of that stupid pigtail match that's in the beginning of every bracket, and then basically, I guess the reason behind it, he was thinking, and I agree with a lot of this, is you wrestle the same guys throughout the year in their dual meets. Okay, like the Big Ten, you wrestle all those guys throughout the year, and then you go to the Big Ten tournament and just wrestle them all again. I guess his thought process was, why not, break it up a little bit? You wrestle those guys in your conference throughout the year, and then you have a regional tournament, and that also helps with seeding because you'll be exposed to different guys throughout the year. You'll have better exposure of opponents, guys you may not have seen throughout the year in your regional. So yeah, it helps with seeding. Every regional tournament would be roughly the same competitiveness, whereas we have conferences like the Big Tens where some weights are qualifying 9 or 10 guys. They're wrestling for 9th place, and then you've got conferences like the SoCon where it's just the champ goes, and you got a guy from VMI or something like that, or Davidson who's qualifying, but would theoretically in a regional setting not even come close to qualifying. So basically, a couple different pros, but really just qualifying the best 32 guys in the country, regardless of what conference they're coming from, what school they're coming from. Better for seeding, just making everything more, I guess, uniform. And then, yeah, I just want to hear your opinion on it, and then we'll dive into it more.
So, first of all, I love the way the qualifier system works now. I think it does an outstanding job of getting the best 33 guys at every weight into the bracket. I think 33 is a stupid number. I don't get the pigtail thing. I'm so glad I never had to wrestle in it. But that aside, the super regional idea, so the way I'm envisioning this is basically you set it up like March Madness, where you can't do it geographically because just running through my head, the Northeast would be absolute madness. Think about all in the same region, because if you just split the United States in 4 quarters, right? Make it even. The Northeast, you're going to end up with Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Michigan State, Lehigh, Pitt.
I'm envisioning this more as, I mean, the South doesn't really exist in college wrestling, so I'm thinking there's kind of, you got the West maybe, you got all your teams out in like what are currently the Pac-12, but you also combine that with your, North Dakota States and, I don't know.
Some Big 12 schools.
All those schools.
I got you.
Yeah. But I think there's a separation between the Midwest, like Ohio State and Michigan State maybe, and then there's a North and maybe an East, something like that. So you got your ACC schools, and you got maybe some other ones on the East Coast, like Rutgers, for example, that could be on the East. But then in the North, you got maybe your PA teams. And I mean, his idea, his theory for it wasn't necessarily purely geographical, but it was more of just, I guess, the way D2 does it. It's like a loose geographic, but then there's also, I guess his theory you could take into consideration, rotating the top teams in the country so you're not stacking one region.
So again, here's the way that I would view it. Do it like March Madness, where team programs as a whole are split into different regions. Now, the region sites will be predetermined. That these 4 sites will host a region this year, and then NCAAs will be held in, Cleveland this year. They're right after the regular season ends. Now this would be because the NCAA could book the hotels and just allocate them to teams, so that part's not hard. Travel would be the only tricky part of this, but you seed the teams essentially, and there are 77 Division I programs, right? So split by 4, you're going to end up with 19 in 3 and 20 in one of them. So, wait, no, I did that math wrong. Is that what it is? Yeah, 19 and 3 and 20 in one of them. Sorry, I had it right the first time. Anyway, so you're going to end up with these 4 regions that, you basically seed it kind of how you would do a snake draft. 1, 2, 3, 4, then 4 and 5 are in the same one, then you come back around. The same way you would seed a giant bracket. And those are your 4 regions. So it'll be different every year. I think that could be pretty cool. I think from a logistics standpoint, it could be difficult to pull off strictly because of the travel, and it presents the athletes and coaches with some challenges, because then you get into how do you seed each bracket. Make of this what you will, but athletes don't have a ton of time to understand and prepare for who the guys they're competing against. I think there's something to it, but I will say, I'm never one that wants to stick with what we have just because I don't want to change. I do think the qualification system we have right now is awesome. I think it gets the right guys there. I think the regional system creates more drama and more excitement and such the weekend before nationals. You know what I mean? Because with the qualification system now, you almost for sure know who's going.
The one thing I will say, I agree with you that the current qualification system is a lot better than it had been in the past, and it's good. The 2 things I'll say about it that I think could be better, and I think this system may help a little bit. I don't know, maybe it wouldn't. Number 1, like I said, I think having some conferences that are so much weaker than others, those conferences are guaranteed to take their champ. So, like I said, there's some weights in the SoCon, or I don't know, when I was in the CAA with Old Dominion, I guess there's some weights that the number 1 guy at that weight really shouldn't be at the NCAA tournament over even like the 14th best guy in the Big Ten. All right, so that's maybe an extreme example, but I think that does happen.
No, it absolutely happens.
Okay, and number 2 is just, I think, at least from what I've experienced, especially from Old Dominion not being like I guess you call us a mid-major school, the 29 qualifiers with the 4 at-large bids, the at-large bids are kind of ridiculous to me. Sometimes they're so inconsistent. They seem very political based. A lot of just Big Ten's teams take them, or, guys with losing records that are from Iowa get the at-large bid, whereas you got a guy, an Old Dominion kid, for example, a couple of my teammates got snubbed on those with wins over those exact guys. I've seen it happen all the time. So I almost feel like I think the at-large bid is a good idea in theory, because you always have your guys who get upset. You have your guys like Nolf who maybe they can't wrestle and are going to rely on that. But I just think it's so political with the at-large bids, and I think something like this would cut that at-large bid number down. Maybe there's 1 or 2 a weight. But, if you're qualifying most of your guys or all of your guys through these regionals, it's more in the hands of who shows up at the conference tournament, at the regional tournament to qualify, and less of let's give the last bid to Iowa because he has an Iowa singlet on. That's just my opinion.
I agree. And look, neither one of them's perfect. You'll never get a perfect system. I definitely think they both have a lot of merit to them, because at least in in my mind's eye, with the way that I explained how I thought the regional system would work out, you do it by teams. So in that example, it's very easily possible that you could have, 14 of the top 32 guys at a certain weight in a certain region, and you end up with only 8 of them being able to go, which would suck. So
there's no perfect system,
right?
Just
unless
just a theoretical idea, especially with D2s and whatever coming up right now. It's definitely a pertinent thing that I was thinking about and that he threw out to me, so I figured it was worth mentioning.
Good word.
Cool idea.
Good word.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Definitely something for the fans, listeners to maybe think about, and if you want to throw out some feedback, right. As always, we take any and all feedback and any and all questions.
So, having said that, let's throw it over to our interview with the man, the myth, the legend, the Gorilla Hulk himself, Frank Molinaro. We'll throw it over to that interview, and then we'll bring it back and wrap it up. Is a Penn State and Pennsylvania legend. He was a 4-time All-American and a national champ at Penn State. Was a 2016 Olympian. He's fresh off a bronze medal finish at the Uregan. Assistant coach for Virginia Tech, Frank Molinaro. Frank, thanks for coming on the program.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So, this past off season, you went through a change in environment for the first time in quite a while. You'd spent the better part of a decade in Happy Valley. What was the change from State College to Blacksburg and everything? What went into that, and what has that adjustment and everything been like?
The first part was just a big decision, because we were moving my family, my kids. My wife had a career, so the first part was just kind of the decision to pursue coaching, and the opportunity was kind of out of the blue. So I wasn't necessarily looking for anything at the time. I was kind of just focused on wrestling and what I had going on then, but it was a great opportunity. We came out and checked it out in Blacksburg, and, my wife really liked it. I really liked it. I was really excited about the opportunity to kind of use some of my experience and, test some of the things out that I had learned at Penn State and put it to good use.
So going through your first year at Virginia Tech, you guys obviously have an awesome team. You're a top 10 program and everything. What's it been like getting used to the new team? How do you like working with Coach Roby and Coach Freyer and everybody? Just what has that whole experience been like so far?
Man, it's been as smooth as it possibly could be. Really no complaints. I'm really excited every day I wake up. I think kind of don't know what to expect going into a new team, new culture, new group of guys, but really just can't say enough good things about our team. All the guys in our team, guys in our lineup now, the guys redshirting. Very happy with the staff that we have here. Very happy with kind of the balance that we're continuing to figure out. Excited about some of our Southeast Regional Training Center guys, and really just excited to kind of meet some of the people that, make this place what it is at Virginia Tech. There's a really good support staff here. It's in a really good location. We have a lot of good things to build upon. Got a good football team, and, happy about what we have now, but also excited about what we can continue to do here with the group of guys that we have. Just with the motivation that we got going and the energy with the team and kind of some of their goals individually. I think, it's just a great place to be. It's a great place for me to learn more too, from some of the people that I'm around. And I think everybody would agree that, the culture here and the energy has been really good.
So, you mentioned the guys on the team. For us, obviously, we really focus on Pennsylvania guys. And you've got Andrew, Zach, and Solomon all in the starting lineup. Just talk a little bit about those guys. And, I know the three of them have had very different seasons and are very different kids. But just talk a little bit about those three and what it's been like working with them.
So Zach, I'll talk about him first. He's been really just fantastic. I mean, he's extremely diligent. He's a very persistent in his approach with everything, and just a really smart kid too. I mean, he's very easy to coach, Zach. You teach him things, and he'll go and practice them. He'll question things. He'll continue to develop his game. He's always curious about how to get better. He's always willing to continue to do the things necessary to get better. He has humility. I think that's important too, and really excited about where he's at this part of the season. He's done a lot of great things for the team. He scored a lot of bonus points. He's a good leader, and really excited for him to finish strong in this postseason. I think that, really limitless in regards to how he can finish. I think he'll decide that, but he has a talent to wrestle with anyone. Same thing with Chisco. He's a very talented guy as well. He's got a great feel for wrestling. He's really good in certain positions and certain things that people struggle with. And I think that he does a good job of for him to finish strong here, and just kind of see what's ahead of him. And Andrew Dunn, another really great teammate, great guy, works very hard. He was just in my office, a couple minutes before I did this interview. And, I think the one thing that stands out about him is when I watch him wrestle is his ability to wrestle in scram, his ability to wrestle, continuation, chain wrestling, whatever you call it. Andrew is very good at that. And I think, again, when he continues to realize how good he is, I think he'll determine, his success. But he has a bright future. He's had a good season so far. He's done a lot of things that, we're proud of. He had a good tournament in Vegas. He had some good wins. And again, just like Zach, he continues to improve. He continues to buy into anything that you throw at him. And, heavyweight's a tough weight class, and Andrew's got his work cut out for him. But again, he's just another guy part of the program that's buying in, that's excited, that's trying to get better at wrestling. So, we're just happy to have him.
So changing gears a little bit to your own competitive career, like I mentioned in the opening, you're coming off a bronze medal finish at the Oregon. Just talk a little bit about how you've been feeling about the way you competed, at Oregon, and how you're feeling as far as where you're at moving forward, kind of into the spring and summer, into the Open and trials.
I'm very, very excited. I have specific goals every day when I wake up in the morning. I have something to be really excited about, and the fire is back. So competing in the Oregon was a great opportunity. Was kind of unexpected how it all fell together, but the timing of it all was perfect with my training and my focus and kind of the downtime that I had. I was able to make good use out of it, and really just kind of validated some of the things that I was working on, validated some of the things that I'm trying to implement to my own game, into my own mindset, into my own tactics, and it was a good test. It was kind of looking forward, I think, I'm really know that with this new form, it's going to be a process in order to make the team win a world championship, but it starts with whatever's in front of me next. I kind of have the whole year planned out, championship, and, right now I'm just kind of working backwards and seeing what my next event's going to be. I'm not sure if I'll be going to World Cup or if I'm going to go to the NYC. I'm not sure if I'm going to wait till the US Open. That's the only thing that's been undetermined to this. I'm really excited about the weight class in itself. Kind of felt like the last couple of years I've been having a little bit of trouble making 65. It kind of, I wouldn't say it distracted me, but it held me back from, maybe making some more gains in my wrestling itself, maybe some other things I wanted to improve upon, my strength and conditioning, and I wasn't able to kind of be as effective as I wanted to. So I think taking a break these next couple of years and wrestling 70 kilos will be extremely refreshing for me. I think I'll be as strong as I possibly could be, and conditioning is the best I can possibly be. There'll be a minimal weight cut, and I'm just really excited for the opportunities ahead. And I think Coach Zadek, I'm excited kind of for, whatever he has planned and has planned for me in the future as well.
So you mentioned the new qualifying process. As an athlete, what are your thoughts on the whole Final X series and, that the departure from what the process that it's kind of always been for USA Wrestling?
Well, I guess I'll just, start with my one critique is I think it's, we did a really good job last year at the World Championship, so I'm kind of a proponent of keeping things the same and, why change things if it's not broken? But on the flip side of that, I'm excited that it's something different. However, my only concern would be that I think the quicker we can kind of get through this trials process as an athlete, the better, because then your focus becomes directly on winning a world championship, competing with guys from different countries, scouting opponents, maybe going to specific tournaments to try to wrestle certain guys to nail down your seed at these ranking tournaments so you can put yourself in a better position to win. So kind of having it drawn out a little bit does make it just a little bit more challenging in terms of, kind of directing that focus for a certain period of time. But I'm also excited that it is a process because, I think anything great starts as a process. And, to be able, in my case, with a guy who's a world medalist in my weight class who sits out to the last event, for me to be able to go to the U.S. Open, to the Challenge Tournament, the best out of 3 in the Challenge Tournament, and then to the Challenge Series, I think is great because, all of that time and energy will be very heightened in terms of improvement, being ready, improving, scouting guys, just being in the right state of mind that it takes. So I'm excited to kind of work my way through that process, but more excited for, I want to make the team and then focus on winning a medal for the USA. And I think that's my only critique is it takes a little bit longer to get through that process where maybe your focus could just be already zoned in.
Right. So, turning back the clock a little bit, when you came to Penn State, when you committed to Penn State, you were a Sunderland recruit, right?
Yeah.
So, and it feels like a lifetime ago now even for me to think about the Coach Sunderland days at Penn State. But what was the transition like for you as an athlete, going from Coach Sunderland to Coach Sanderson? And, what were the two regimes? How were they similar? How were they different? Just talk about what that whole process was like and what wrestling for both coaches was like.
I think the biggest change, was probably part of the culture. It was really a different approach. I think they're both kind of like comparing apples and oranges. They're both really good. They've both had a lot of success. When I was recruited to Penn State, my redshirt season, they placed 3rd at the NCAA tournament. So, they had a good system, but very polar opposite. A lot of it was kind of more gritty, more hard work, more kind of battling every day, and just a different kind of mental approach as well. And then when Coach Kale came in, it kind of was a complete 180 to what I had been used to from high school and from college. It was a different approach, but the way he presented it was also very exciting. The people that wanted to get better at wrestling, the people that wanted to stay and make it work, they were the winners anyway. And they liked it. They adopted it. Everybody was kind of curious at first, but how this was all going to work out. But I think that people were really excited to wrestle. And if they weren't, I saw a lot of guys transfer. I think I started with maybe 10 plus guys in my class, and I graduated with 3 guys my senior season. So there was a lot of guys that were in and out of the program. But, the biggest change was, at the time I was cutting a lot of weight and I wasn't living my life right my freshman year. And, Kale, I give him a lot of credit for, kind of just his mindset, his approach, his consistency, his system at Penn State, his system of training the guys. It was all really, really good for me. And I think that, everything happens for a reason. So I was just blessed and grateful that I was able to kind of have both of it, because there was also a lot of great things about the Sunderland era. Coach Hughes, Coach Onspach, Coach Derlin, those are all really, I'm still really good friends with all of those guys, and they were all really good mentors for me, and they all definitely had a major impact, on the rest of my career and the way I decide to coach now and live my life and the way I am with my family. So, I'm extremely grateful for those guys as well. I think they are a big part of the success that Penn State's having now, because, we can't forget, they built the foundation. They had the success. It wasn't like, it was completely broken and they had to fix it. So hats off to those guys as well.
You actually kind of led right into the next thing I wanted to ask you. You've been surrounded by a lot of pretty bright wrestling minds and guys like Coach Derlin, Coach Hughes, Coach Sunderland, Coach Sanderson, and now the guys you coach with at Virginia Tech. Who for you, what guys for you have kind of been the biggest influences on how you handle your athletes, on how you conduct yourself as a coach on a day-to-day basis, whether it be in the room or in the corner? Who are kind of those guys for you?
Man, it's tough to kind of pinpoint it, because I would feel bad if I left anyone out, because there really is a lot of people. I think most recently I had some serious breakthrough with Bruce Burnett. He was a great, great mentor. Really just the integrity and the way he lives his life, his consistency as a person, his work ethic, his intelligence. I think kind of how self-aware he was and prepared for everything. I learned a ton about life and wrestling, and God and those kind of things, and my faith. Coach Zadek, he continues to be a big influence on kind of how I do things, how, I plan things out, how I'm intentional about what I'm doing. Cody Sanderson, he was my direct coach at Penn State, so, he's definitely has a lot of say in kind of how I do things now. I think his approach, I liked how organized he was. I liked how he always had a plan. He had a good way of dealing with the guys and getting them to feel really good, whether that be training them differently, talking to them differently, giving them rest, making them more, and sometimes just being really creative. I think I kind of learned that creativity and organization, and I could go down the line, with Coach Sanderson, with, take a Hughes. Hughes is a hard-nosed guy. I think he taught me how to be gritty, to be a fighter, to not accept where I was at, and to fight for my goals, and Matt Derlin, he's another guy that I think I could put my finger on and say, hey, this guy, he believed in me before anybody did. He recruited me, gave me a great opportunity to wrestle at Penn State, and he believed in me when I wasn't good enough, and he helped me believe that I could do that. So, he's another person, but I could go on for days and name people that have helped me. I think another person too, and it would definitely be my wife. I think there was a certain balance that I needed in order to get to another level in my wrestling career, in order to get to another level in my life. And, she has provided that. And she continues to kind of help me find that balance, kind of help me, keep myself in check and, keep my focus in the right places and keep me grateful and really just give me something to be happy about every single day. So, I would also say that she was a big impact. And lastly, my parents. I still talk to my parents, a lot. I still have a really great relationship with them, and they're still the same people that build me up when I'm broken and kind of bring me down when I get too cocky. So, I'm really grateful that for all the people that I have and all the small influences that they've had and big influences. And, I'm excited that I've expanded down at Virginia Tech too, because I think, there are a lot of people that are having a good impact on me now as well that will be beneficial moving forward.
Well, awesome stuff, man. That's really all I had for you. So, at this point, I'll kind of give you the floor. Anything that, you want to say or get out there, whether it be about Virginia Tech or just anything in general, I'll, give you the floor.
I think just kind of, my advice for people going into the postseason, I think sometimes you look down at your phone and maybe you realize you have 20 days left and it kind of makes you feel a little bit nervous in your stomach. I think that the closer you get, the more focused you get. The closer you get, the more excited you get. The closer you get, the more confident you get. The closer you get, man, I cannot wait for 22 days. Because in 22 days or 21 days, man, I can't wait. I'm going to be a national champion finally. This is what I've been working for. And I would say just receive it and, just receive it. And don't try to convince yourself of it. Don't try to come up with all these reasons why it will happen. Just own it and be excited about it. And, whatever results you get, I think you'll be happy with if you go in there lighthearted with that approach. That's all.
Well, awesome stuff, Coach. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us here on the program. So thank you again. Best of luck to you guys at ACCs and at NCAAs. And, I'm sure we'll be seeing you around.
Thanks, man.
Awesome, man. Take it easy, Frank.
All right, and we thank Frank Molinaro, the Gorilla Hulk, the Olympian, now assistant coach at Virginia Tech, for joining us. Mason, as always, thank the fans, thank the listeners. Keep any and all questions coming. You have anything for us before we sign off?
Not much. Thank you guys again for listening. Thank guys and girls for listening. Been a fun ride so far this season. Really excited to experience these last two events with you guys. We're gonna do some live podcasting and some really fun things at the NCAA tournament. So that's gonna be a ton of fun. It's gonna be a totally different experience for me than anything that I've ever dealt with. So I'm really excited about it. And, outside of that, just keep all the questions, all the feedback coming. If you see me or Tristan or Jeff or Eric or any of us at, I know that Tristan, you and I will both be in Hershey for PAAs. I'll be at NCAAs along with Jeff. So if you see us, and you listen to the show or whatever, feel free to say hi. We're more than happy to talk. Any and all listeners, any and all supporters of PA Power, you guys are the best. So excited for this last month of the 2017-18 season.
All right, and that's going to wrap it up for us at the PA Power College Podcast. Thanks for dialing in. I'm Tristan Warner. Find me on Twitter at WarnTriz, and you can find Mason Beckman at Beck_Diggity. Visit PAPowerWrestling.com for all your wrestling needs, and be sure to follow us on Twitter at PAPowerWrestle, and go ahead and give us a friend request on Facebook. Until next time, stay classy, wrestling fans.